Hello, and welcome back to Shatter Our Souls with Novaria. Today, we are tackling the Mario Kart Wii Elite Cup at 50cc without using items. And finally, the randomizer I used to pick my kart and character has officially chosen my favorite character in the game, Luigi. Now, a lot of people, when they think Mario Kart, they think of Red Cap. And this is probably true. But the thing is that back when I was a youngin', I used to play Super Mario World with some cousins, and I was the eternal Luigi. It just made more sense that I ended up with the green guy versus the red one. And as time went on, Luigi definitely became my favorite character just because that's how I grew up, that's who I played as constantly. So, Luigi is going to be showcasing today's cup, and I'll be honest, Leaf Cup is actually probably one of the, I'd say one of the top two of the retro cups. I believe that the first two, the Shell and Banana Cup, don't necessarily do a whole lot as far as showcasing what these retro cups are meant to be. Showcasing an old set of courses in a new light, brought to a new generation. Finally, I'm not the one hit by the blue shell. So seeing that positive trend, in my opinion, is great. But more than that, it also comes to the fact that, for me, I never really played Mario Kart DS. So, Desert Hills, or whatnot as a course, I didn't get to experience in its original version. I can tell you that it's probably very similar to this, but again, it wasn't a game that I really played to any extreme extent because of lack of capability of getting a hold of the game itself. But taking another look at it, this is a pretty solid track. You have your water features, multiple ruins, and in my opinion is much more engaging and much more to look at from just a general standpoint than what you ended up with Dry Desert in Double Dash. So overall, definitely a step up in the desert-themed tracks altogether. Couple that with the flames, I suppose they call them flame snakes. Not actually sure what they're called, but regardless, they add a lot of character to this otherwise, desert-themed track, something that has been cropping up a lot lately. With that said, we had a pretty sizable lead, so I think it's time that we head to track number 2, Bowser Castle 3. This track was made for the Game Boy Advance, or Mario Kart Super Circuit. And it's one of those tracks that I actually always enjoyed. As far as the older Game Boy Advance and SNES tracks go, this one was one that I think was built pretty well. You had your thwomps, you had your flame bubbles that bounce up in between the grates and jumps at the end of the track here. But you also ended up with a lot of rather wide turns that definitely supported the drift mechanics of the Wii. As far as a Bowser Castle from another game goes, this one's definitely one that fits the mold. And I think that's a great thing. The reality is that a lot of tracks in Mario Kart come back later on, and they're not necessarily a bad thing, but what I've found is that a lot of the retro tracks, now that I've had a chance to play Mario Kart 64 more accurately and actually play the original version, I can respect what they did to the Mario Kart tracks that they brought back to Nintendo, or for the Wii and Mario Kart 8 specifically, because DK's Jungle Parkway, it's a one-to-one recreation for one. And that track is one that is fantastically well built. It's one that has a lot of spectacle. It's built from the ground up to support this system. But in the same vein, is also built to work with this game. And I don't think I ever gave it enough credit for that back in the day, simply because I didn't understand the source material. And this is going to be kind of a running theme with the retro tracks. I don't necessarily think they eclipse the Nitro tracks, the brand new ones, but I do believe that they do enough that is new or different, that they are in and of themselves a good alternative track, if that makes any sense whatsoever. They're not going to be as good as the Nitros, but they are going to be, more often than not, a better version than what we started with back in their original releases, with the exception of tracks like maybe Baby Park. Anywho, Bowser's Castle, we're sitting at about a half lap ahead right now, so I think we've got this round in the bag. I don't really see this one going sideways enough to matter in any meaningful capacity. So, I guess let's just enjoy Bowser's Castle for what it is. One thing that I will give kind of some odd credit to, I don't necessarily know what they were doing with the grates here, where you don't really need to even turn to go past all of them. To me, that makes little sense. It doesn't necessarily work the way I anticipated. But again, I have never played Super Circuit. Maybe there's some aspect to the track that I'm missing, or some context that just did not get translated well from one to the next. Speaking of translating tracks, and I mentioned it earlier, DK's Jungle Parkway. Now, this track is one that didn't really vibe well with me in my younger years, just because I didn't truly understand what the point of the track was. And to me, that is a real shame, because seeing the original versus the recreated version, I definitely have a lot more respect for the recreated version than I used to. And partially because while I enjoyed Mario Kart 64, I enjoyed it, but I didn't really enjoy the slippery controls. And I think that's something that a lot of people will say about video games in general, especially as time goes on. Certain controls and certain games as they get older tend to be less precise than what we would ordinarily look at and say, oh yeah, this is the one I want to play with. This is the car I want to use. This is the course selection that I'm after. So I'm okay with that aspect, if that makes any sense at all. But overall, each course is going to be slightly different from its original, just because of the new system that it was put into. Anyways, with the Leaf Cup about 2/3 done, and lap 2 having about a 10 to 15 second lead, we're looking in pretty good shape right now. Reality is most of the Mario Kart tracks at 50cc, there's not going to be a whole lot of competition if you know your tracks well. And I, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, had played this game to death back when it came out. So I know most of these tracks inside out and backwards. I wouldn't say that I know it as well as Mario Kart Double Dash, nor would I say that I know it better than any of the Mario Kart 8 tracks right now, at least the original ones. The booster course pack is something totally different. But reality is that Mario Kart Wii did a lot for the franchise. And this is the one that when I was younger, my little brother and I used to play for endless hours. To the point where we actually attempted to beat all 32 tracks in one sitting. Something that, to this day, I don't think I could do anymore. And even less so with Mario Kart 8. But we're gonna eventually, I may end up doing a Mario Kart 8 one-off where I attempt all 30 or all 92, 96 tracks in one go. That'll be fun. Probably a tad on the long side and definitely with a sore throat when I'm done. But I think that'd be fun. Anywho, DK's Jungle Parkway, for whatever reason, 50cc doesn't really lean into its strengths very well. Generally speaking, at higher speeds, you're going to end up with a couple of points in the track with a lot of bananas. Specifically that bridge there. Now, I think the reason behind it is the bridge itself has a lot of choke potential, where you can hold back opponents just because bananas do their job. And it really ends up leading into the track feeling like there's a bit more nuance to it. And it's shown up a number of times in the past little while. Mario Circuit. Now, Mario Circuit being from Mario Kart Double Dash is a good thing in my eyes. I definitely think that compared to other tracks, well, this is one I ranked fairly low altogether. I also believe that Mario Kart Double Dash's Mario Circuit did a lot right. Seriously, red shell off the first item box and the giant mushroom? These guys are just going all out today. It was one I ranked low. And I think the reason I ranked it low was because it was something that I viewed as a beginner course. But the thing is that a beginner course or not, it was still a fun track. It was one that I remember my cousin and I absolutely going bonkers trying to get past certain sections of the track, where we were laughing about getting hit by a red shell and a blue shell right in succession, and struggling to really get a win at the high end of the game at 150cc or even mirror mode. So, altogether, it's a course that, while I might not put it as high as I once did, I definitely still have very fond memories of. It's also a track that's changed ever so slightly from its original version. See, some tracks, when it came out in Double Dash, had a very specific set of rules, a very specific set of this is what it is expected. And I definitely agree to a point. You're expected to have certain sets of expectations at 50cc versus 100 versus 150. That's why Luigi's Circuit took out the barrier in the middle of the track on 100cc and thinned the track even more at 150 to make it more difficult and less accessible, and dare I say, more chaotic with each subsequent play. Now, the one major change in Mario Circuit is that this tunnel here actually loses a couple of mushies. Nothing excessive, nothing that would end up costing you the race, but just enough of a tweak that most would miss it. So that's a little minor issue. The other thing is that those bumps became larger, or rather sent you higher, allowing for more tricks to play off of Mario Kart Wii's trick system more than what it used to. Anyways, with that, we have officially completed Mario Kart Wii's Leaf Cup. Join me next week as we take a trek through the final 50cc cup, Mario Kart Wii's Lightning Cup. If you like what you see, I'd love if you dropped a like, left a subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Until then, be good to one another, be speedy, and have a good one. You know, I gotta say, this is quite the celebration for the Eternal player too. Gotta love it. Oh yeah, he's definitely a little shy and bashful here.